Okay, let's take a look at him handling the female form. It's surprising how well the approach works, you know, because you see him handling on like a lean, wiry male, which is kind of you know, the body type that Schiele will look for in males. You go, okay, I can see why it would work for that, but what's surprising is how well it works for graceful female forms. Now, partly this is you know, him building the composition of the female at least off of a long, graceful S-curve. So that means he can still look for, you know, like that's going to be the scapula through there. He's looking for it in a pretty bold, abrupt way. The arms are again hitting more or less at horizontal, but not anywhere near as extreme as we've seen in the other male compositions. Although here you can see he's pretty, yeah, he's dealing with the limbs in a pretty like horizontal and vertical way, right? He's playing with those lines on this child figure at least. Not quite sure what's happening here. It feels like the child is quite concerned with supporting the mother, and the mother is more concerned with looking sleek and sexy. But anyway, let's just break it down from an anatomical point of view. And again, like the rib cage, really obvious, right? You can feel like him just drawing that egg shape in there. It's gonna be bigger than I've drawn. It's gonna come up to there, something like that. And the way he's handling the line, again, it's following the movement of the ribs, because he is aware that especially as the arms get pulled forward and the serratus gets pulled forward, because if her arms were by her side, the serratus would be there or there, let's say, covering up a lot of that. That gets pulled forward, exposing more of the rib cage. So these lines are telling us that story, and this line connecting through there, connecting to that, gives us the bottom of the rib cage. So if you're not aware of, you know, the shape of the back being defined by the shape of the rib cage, which many people aren't, then there's no way that you're gonna handle the line in that way. We can see on the child here, by the way, you know, so we've got an upward movement, and then he's leaning back through there, which is pushing the ribs forwards, and warm. You see that line through there. It's just using that to define the shape of the rib cage. Because why? Because bone. That's why. Because first of everything, bone. You know. Here, more bone, that's going to be the C7, and then on the hips, well, he hasn't really pulled the pieces out that much, but it's going to be there. This is going to be the greater trochanter through here. I think it's going to be like there, and then this would be that actual bump would be tens fasciolate sitting on top of that. I think. But either which way, yeah, I think, because if he was saying that was the greater trochanter pushing out, well, we know how sharply he handles bone, so I think he would really, you know, sharpen that up. But he still gets that movement, you know, from the hips breaking and going down very, very strongly. And if we take a look at this, I just think this is just the most amazing thing, really. And again, he is allowing the big movements to be these big graceful movements through here, right? Warm. He's not playing any of that too harshly, but then in his mid-forms, and we'll see this time and time again, his mid-forms he allows to go really sharp. And you know, we mentioned on the male, on the deltoid before, like what he likes to do is to strip away the deltoid and just leave the humerus. Like, that's really interesting, isn't it? Just to go, you know what, I like the movement that the humerus gives me, because that's a bony movement, and you know, the guy loves working with the bony texture and the bony movement. So we'll see this just so many times. Like, forget the deltoids, strip that off, allow that to really push out. That's, by the way, going to tell us about some sort of weight being supported on this arm. He hasn't included her arm in the composition, but there has to be something that is going to be pushing that up through there. And so that, even though we're not seeing it, is giving us a contrast against the other arm, which we can't see, which is then relaxed, and then this hand is coming up. So it's you know, I'm not sure that would be intentional, but it's a really fascinating thing to think about, that he's creating tension between two things that you don't see, right? He's creating tension between an arm that you don't see that is pushing up, and an arm that you don't see that is relaxed and going down, and there's the juxtaposition between those two things. Again, we can go bang, aces, right? He's really digging out the hips. Not difficult for us to see the bony effect of the aces and the iliac crest through there, and it's going to be subtly indicated down there. And again, rib cage, bang, we can see the rib cage very clearly. Here the hand is sitting over the top of it, and then because we have this this foreshortening view, that gives us that curvature, right? The curvature of the rib cage. So the breasts would not be flat on there. A lot of us would build the chest and the backs flat, but you know, like I said in the previous image we were looking at, the torso is built on the curvature of the rib cage, essentially, right? That's the fundamental shape that underlines it all, and that curve gives us that. And then, you know, he's looking at how the fat of the breasts will fall to the side and fall down in the reclining model, and you know, it's all very, very sophisticated stuff. And through here even we'd have that would be the fullness of the quadriceps, but then like if we trace that line over, we have this depression where the quadriceps meets the adductors, right? The sartorius would normally be sat, sartorius is going to be coming that way, would be sat within that depression, and then oftentimes what you get is a sharp angle break from the adductors. That's the sort of thing that you start to see it when you've played enough with anatomy to know that you want to look for it, and if you're not looking for it, then you won't find it. And here he does, just with the way he handles these lines, right? But this leg is coming out, and so those forms might be getting stretched in. This one is more relaxed, so he's allowing the compression of the fat to be the primary read through there. Okay, let's finish up this video with so before I mentioned that it's often surprising when you see him use curvaceous lines, because you know he has such a tendency towards abrupt form, and this is, yeah, it's a weird thing for me to look at, because you can see it's a Schiele drawing, but you're like, well, okay, okay, fine. And well, one thing that I think is interesting here is like this, you know, this is a fairly full body type, but a lot of the fullness is defined by the bones, right? So this, you see that break there, that's set up by just the width of the hips. So he's really pushing the femininity of the form through there. Now this through there, that's not hips, right? That's fat, the fat that females store on the thighs, which sometimes is called the subtrochanteral fat, the fat underneath the great trochanter. And he's aware of that, right? Because you can see just this little break through there. He's going, well, okay, to be honest, I think if we were mirroring this movement on either side, that hip would have to come out a little bit more. But, well, regardless, you have that break through there, and then that's the fat through there. But he's still, even though we have the subtlety of that movement, he's still treating this as one big, gentle, soft curve. And then in the thigh, you go into a big, gentle, soft curve, and look on the inside, like what's happening with all of these lines. So you're playing simplicity off against complexity, and that's what happens in the human leg, right? He's just taking that and he's pushing it. And so sometimes these kind of ideas can be easier to find when you're looking at artists who are playing with the anatomy and manipulating the anatomy. But then when you go back to life, you go, yeah, wow, no, I can see that. I can see, you know, this would be fat through there, and then that straightens up, and we're going to be seeing hamstrings through there, and then boom, we have that push out there because the femur is coming in here and it's pushing out through there, and then we swing back in, and then we come out for the gastrocnemius, and you know that all happens. It's just, you know, if it's happening 100% in life, then it's happening 200% in Schiele drawing. Now, another thing that I talk to you guys a lot as soon as you look at posing is how do you tell the story of compression and how do you tell the story of extension? Because as soon as you move any part of the body, you are going to get compression somewhere and you're going to get extension somewhere. So here, as the body comes over that way, where is the compression? Boom, it's there. So he's telling all of that just with a few hard lines to tell us the fact that there are wrinkles through there. And then here, he's allowing those lines to be much more gentle, right? Well, firstly, of course, we don't have wrinkle lines through there, but even if we compare 1, 2, 3 lines through there with 1, 2, 3 lines there, you can see how much more compressed they are on this side to tell that story. And I think we can probably break down what's happening here. So that little indication there, right? That's the scapula. Now, one thing that I will mention to you guys when we're studying the shoulder girdle is look, you may not find the scapula that obviously through there, right? That's where the scapula is going to be on her, but you will notice it the most at the bottom, because through here the trapezius is going to be softening it. So the fact that that line is just there, like in real life, maybe you did see more of that, but he's just going, no, boom, that tells us everything you need to know about, well, not everything you need to know about the scapula, but that combined with that tiny weeny little depression through there, that tells us, yeah, that's deltoid through there, that's trapezius through there, that's spine of the scapula. Connect those things up. So 2 tiny bits of information, 1 and 2, tells you everything that you need to know about the scapula there. Then that bulge is going to be teres major, that bulge is going to be rib cage, and that bulge is going to be fat and obliques. And none of those things are particularly bulgy because he's using long and graceful lines to tell the story of extension. By the way, what's interesting here is he has allowed her to have deltoids, which, as we've seen, isn't something that he permits, but it would be stylistically weird given that he's looking for full curvaceous forms through here to go, yeah, that's the model I'm looking for, is full and curvaceous, except for deltoids. That would be, it could work, but it would be a hell of a stylistic incongruity, right? So he would risk just breaking the whole drawing by inserting an idea that belongs in another world. Again, just throws 3 lines there, selling the compression because her head is looking over that way. By the way, as you look at those lines, they are not 3 evenly spaced, evenly shaped lines. That's always the danger with wrinkles, and you can see that each of those 3 lines has something in common, but there are differences between them, and the distances between them are different. So always, where is the pattern? Well, the pattern is that C-shaped line. Where does the pattern break? Where is the chaos? Well, that's in the distancing, the size, and the movements of the lines.